Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Seizing the Years with me, your host, Rachel Jennings. And today I am joined by a wonderful guest. I'm talking about Devon. You might know her from her pretty authentic content over on LinkedIn, where she's really committed to making science cool and understandable, which is something I think she's doing a really great job at. Without further ado, Devon, thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here talking with you.
I suppose I should technically call you Dr. Devon because you have a PhD. And
Devon is
I won't do that for the rest of the show, but I'm curious if there was like a catalyst for you that made you want to becoming more vocal and advocating for science from a PhD perspective. You're not just an influencer out there following the trends and using studies in a way that benefits you. You've really got a deep scientific understanding of the topics that are important at the moment, both in and outside of the industry, but you've become really vocal about it. So catch me up. How did that all start? And maybe also just cover a bit of your background as well.
Sure. So I'm a food scientist by background. I do have my PhD in food science, and I've been in the functional food and supplement industry for the last 20 years, whether it's formulating. I got my start at an internship at Kellogg's way back in the day. And I've worked in sales, tech sales, technical writing, before I joined Informa, where I'm currently editor at Supply Side Supplement Journal. I was working for a company called Step Change Innovations, and they were very much about formulating and commercializing with science-backed branded ingredients. So that was the time that I really got my start being out there more on LinkedIn, because they hired me for my ingredient expertise. And if I was being touted as an ingredient expert, I kind of thought like I needed to act the part. So I started posting a lot more on LinkedIn. And in the beginning, it was just sharing articles from trade journals and things that I found interesting, or new research that had caught my eye. And slowly over time, I started interjecting a little bit of my own thoughts with things. And then it was December of 2024. My friend Sarah Burden, who also knows Dave Slagle very well, posted what her trends for the next year. Big Ideas 2025 was her video, and she tagged me. And I'm not one to let a friend down, so I got out my camera. I think that was the first video I ever posted on LinkedIn. I cut a crown out of a paper plate and I colored it gold with a highlighter. And I put it on my head, and I said that I was wearing it because I'm a queen, and 2025 is going to be the year of the woman, which I do think came true. There's a lot more women's health products out there. So that was great. So after that initial jaunt into the video world, I'm like, okay, I can get on camera, I can do this. And started, finding out about some tools to streamline things a little bit, and just getting a little more comfortable with figuring out what I wanted to say. I talked about products that we were launching at Step Change. I talked about ingredients I found interesting. I even did like some tasting reviews of different products out there, because protein, of course, is very big. So I was trying everything with protein in it. And zero regrets from how all this unfolded, because now I'm in a role where I get to put the science out there for a living and talk with people about what's going on in the industry for a living. And I love it. So yeah, that's how I started on LinkedIn.
Amazing. It's fantastic. So you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
The food science piece is interesting to me, and I'm curious to hear more about your mission to make the rigorous science of food feel more cool and accessible. And I'm specifically interested maybe through like the American lens, because we've seen some big changes over in the US this year with the MAHA moms and the food pyramid flipping up a little bit and stuff like that. So tell me about your mission, and then maybe link it to current events a little bit and sort of where the US sits right now from that perspective. I'd love to know.
Sure. So I don't think science needs to be a foreign language. And I've always prided myself as I've gone through school or work, if I can get my mom to understand it, and my mom is very much more on history and literature and not a scientist at all. But if I can explain it in a way where she gets the gist of what I'm working on, then I feel like I've done my job. And that's kind of my threshold or my criteria for being able to translate science or getting things out there for everyone else. Because even though, in the functional food and the dietary supplement industry, there is a lot of science, we have people from all walks of life involved in that, whether they're marketing, whether they're procurement, operations, manufacturing, sales. It's not just the scientists doing their thing. We need all people, and we need to be able to communicate in a way that everyone can understand and feel like they're getting something out of it. So my mission really is just make science cool again, and tying it into current events is kind of how it all started for me, because, politics aside, we're in this post-truth era, right? And we have this whole fake news thing, right? And I feel like that has crossed over into, I don't want to say fake science, but there's this huge distrust of science, especially with how everything unfolded during COVID. So in my mind, watching COVID, it was like we're watching the scientific method play out in real time. Like, I'm a firm believer that science, when done right, is going to question itself, is going to build on itself. Things change over time as we get more information, as we develop more methods to understand the mechanisms behind how things work. So, there was all this hoopla over masks and everything. And don't, we don't need to wear a mask. And then we found out it was airborne, and we do need to wear a mask because, at first they were saying, don't wear masks, save masks for, first responders and medical practitioners and things like that. But then everyone needed to wear a mask if we're trying to prevent transmission. And it wasn't, some people thought, Fauci is like flip-flopping on, the advice that he's giving, but it was more information becoming available and recommendations playing out in real time. And it was kind of the first time, at least in my mind, where we're watching this play out real time. I mean, we have social media, we have ways of communicating things instantly and getting all sorts of information out there, and it's not always verified and it's not always trustworthy. And I feel like that mentality of kind of not completely trusting science carried over into the years. And then, now we have RFK, who's kind of turning everything on its head. And it's interesting, and I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I think RFK could be very good for the industry in some ways, because he's looking at things outside the box a little bit, but he's also completely distrusting very established science, especially when it comes to vaccines and things like that. And that I've got a problem with. So it was really current events that made me double down on the content that I've been doing, because I can't change people's minds about politics, nor would I want to. I have my own thoughts, but we need a diverse community to challenge each other to grow. And I think that's important. So I know I'm not going to change people's minds on politics, but maybe I can stay in my lane and get people to think about science in a different way. So that really made me want to get more content out there and get good information and make it accessible, because, you were talking about how, we've got kind of this crossover, and how LinkedIn is, becoming a little bit more like Instagram and TikTok and things like that. And, like the day in the life of and things like that. And I take a lot of my inspiration from my doom scrolling on Facebook, because sadly, it's not always the most credible voices that gets lifted. It's the most sensational voices that get lifted. And I feel like, maybe I need to be a little more wacky to get attention on the things that actually matter. It's like, I don't know that how we make science better other than just trying to beat people at their own game. And scientists, we tend to be a little more, we're not always 100% confident in everything that we're saying, because we don't always know, and we acknowledge that and we embrace that. And the people that are confident and believe everything that they say, even though it's not accurate, that's what we gravitate towards too when we're taking in media. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit and make things, more fun and basically try to beat people at their own game. And, whether or not it's working remains to be seen, but, maybe one person at a time, I'll convince them that science is a good thing.
The pipeline is kind of shortening, and I feel like the research is published and then it does the rounds on social media, and then within quite a short period of time, it's like directly being referenced by the Kardashians through their gummy brand. Do you know what I mean? And so it's speeding up, and it is harder to intervene in time to sort of catch something before it's literally for sale online and being sold to people. Creatine gummies last summer was such a big example of that, like the speed at which you can, develop a product, have it made and get it up on the internet, and then reference some studies, but your end product hasn't been tested. It's just becoming quicker and quicker, the speed at which you can do that. You've already said the word vagina probably 2 or 3 times about 10 minutes ago. So let's touch on this perimenopause topic and women's health. I know it matters to you an awful lot, and I think it matters to everybody. It matters to men as well. So I'm interested to understand what led to that becoming a bit of a topic for you, and posting about that online as well. And at the moment, we're seeing more and more creatine content and information coming out in relation to that time in a woman's life. And I think literally yesterday there was a women's health article posted with Halle Berry praising creatine for her sort of postmenopausal brain fog. I think specifically she's talking about she didn't know what was happening to her. It was like the equivalent of being 13 and getting your period when nobody's ever told you what a period is, right? And so that's kind of now doing its rounds in the media as well. And she specifically mentioned creatine. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you just kind of debrief me on that topic, what it means to you, and why you've become quite vocal about it.
Sure. So the obvious answer is because I'm in perimenopause right now. And I started posting about it when I posted about my first hot flash on LinkedIn, because I didn't think this was something that women were talking about enough. And I mean, here I am, a PhD, I'm no dummy, but I didn't even know what was happening in my own body. And I dug into the research and found out that a lot of women do not feel prepared for this phase of life. There's actually peer-reviewed articles on surveys about this. And I felt like, if I'm going to use my voice for anything, I might as well use it for good. And I really don't have any qualms talking about anything that's going on with me personally. So I put it out on blast. And the next thing I know, Danielle Masterson from Nutra Ingredients is sliding into my DMs saying, I want to interview you for Nutra Women Wednesdays. So thank you, Danielle, for doing that, because that kind of helped with content and visibility and things like that too. But, when I started going through perimenopause, there's so many symptoms, and like, it's not the same for every woman. And I was starting to have night sweats, and I'm on Zoloft, and that is a side effect of Zoloft, although I never had it. I was on Zoloft for like 5 years, I think, at that point in time. And I had never had any night sweats from Zoloft before, but I'm like, maybe the Zoloft is just affecting me differently. And then, I was having mood swings and irritability and trouble sleeping. Well, I'm a busy professional. I have a young son. I have a busy family. I have life. So of course I'm going to have stress and not sleep the best. And, and I did have some fatigue and some brain fog. And again, I just attributed that to being a busy professional woman. But then when I had a hot flash when I was awake, then it clicked like, oh shit. Sorry, I don't know if I want to swear. It's like, oh man, I am in perimenopause. And I, went and talked to my doctor about it. I had to go for my yearly checkup anyway. And she's like, oh yeah, you're the right age, and there's no reason, because perimenopause is right now as it stands is more of a diagnosis of exclusion. I mean, if you think that you're going through it in your 30s, from what I'm reading, go talk to your doctor, make sure nothing else is going on. But in your 40s, it's probably more than likely you are. But, you know, there's other things that can mess up your hormones and cause all these different problems. And it's just so weird to like feel like I have no control over what's going on with my body. I mean, since I started going through perimenopause, I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I also take ashwagandha, and that helps me quite a bit because I noticed my anxiety ticked up a little bit when I started perimenopause. And so I added ashwagandha, and that helped level things out a little bit. I have noticed a difference taking creatine. It does help with brain fog. It does help with my energy levels a little bit too. So I definitely think there's something to be said about incorporating that into your life when you're at this juncture. And I take 5 grams a day. So just for anyone that's wondering, you know, women, I mean, we're historically underrepresented in clinical trials. You know, everything is more formulated for a man. You know, we're not taken as seriously. We get gaslit at the doctors a lot. You know, sometimes when you go to your doctor and you're in perimenopause, the first thing they do is prescribe an antidepressant. Well, I mean, in my case, was already on an antidepressant, and you know, my husband's a physician, so my doctors who are in the same hospital system as my husband tend to take me a little more seriously, which helps. But I mean, women get gaslit over all these things all the time, and you know, honestly, it's probably not that hard to gaslight us when we're not even sure what's going on with us ourselves, you know. And we don't, even when I had my son, there were so many things about pregnancy and childbirth that I didn't even know until I went through it. Like, I had no idea that you basically have like a 6-week period after you give birth. It's just it's called loquia or something like that. That's just kind of the way it is. And so imagine, like, if I'm, you know, fairly, you know, I'm not a PhD in biology or anatomy or anything like that, but I'm a fairly educated woman married to a physician, and I still don't know this stuff, and he didn't learn this stuff in med school. So, you know, and I mean, and the other side of it for me is like, before going through all this myself, I feel like menopause, people think of it as like, oh, you're a grandma now. And feel like I'm in the prime of my life. You know, I mean, maybe my periods will stop tomorrow. I don't know. But you know, in no way am I ready to say that this is the end. I mean, this is as natural a transition for a woman as it is to start your periods, as it is to stop them. And I feel like we just need to normalize talking about that more. It's, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's, you know, I mean, we go through puberty and we're not supposed to be ashamed of that. So what's wrong with going through this? So I just used my platform because I felt like women need to talk about this. It needs to be destigmatized, like mental health. That's also very important to me. We've made a lot of progress in destigmatizing that. So let's do that for women's health too. And I am just so grateful to see that even in the couple of years since I put my hot flash on blast on LinkedIn, to see all the products that are out there supporting women in this phase of life and differentiating between perimenopause and menopause and postmenopausal. I mean, there's a lot of overlap with the systems there, but or the symptoms, but you know, it's just such a unique transition. And I'm glad we're talking about that more, and we're having more conversations more. And I want to keep pushing that forward and help us, you know, get the clinical research that we need so we can have better health outcomes for us, because, you know, the world depends on us. We are the 3D printers of the next generation. The world depends on us. So, you know, taking care of ourselves and each other is just so important.
Have you learned any really nice sort of lifestyle tips or routines or things with your diet or sleep or anything that have helped you sort of figure out how to coast through this time in your life a little bit more smoothly?
Oh gosh. I mean, hormone replacement therapy has been a godsend because adding estrogen gel to my routine, like, took away all the hot flashes and probably like 90% of the night sweats. I still get them on occasion, but it's not nearly as bad. So, you know, not having a doctor that realized, you know, yes, this is what you need, let's do this. was good. I mean, and hormone replacement therapy is not going to be for everyone. And if you're at like a high risk of breast cancer, you should not take estrogen. I mean, there's just certain people that shouldn't take it. And there's people that aren't going to want to take it. They just want to go through it naturally, as opposed to putting artificial hormones in your body. And I get that. And I totally respect that. That's probably the biggest thing for me. But the other thing is prioritizing sleep and rest, because I find that I'm so much more better at focusing and staying even keel and keeping my moods and anxiety and things in check if I have slept well. Now, that's easier said than done. I'm still going through periods of like not sleeping well, and the seasons are changing and the weather is insane here in Cleveland. And anytime the seasons change, I just don't sleep well. So and with the travel and everything, I've been a little messed up the last couple of weeks, but that's okay. But trying to prioritize sleep and do anything you can to help with that. I mean, I do see a trainer a couple times a week. I still need to keep working on my physical health, and I'm slowly getting there. But anything that you can do to just prioritize sleep and rest, I think is probably what I would say is the number one thing to getting through this part of your life.
Yeah, it's interesting how when I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I literally didn't understand that intermittent fasting for years on end, being vegan, which again is personal anecdote, but I was vegan for years, but in like a calorie deficit type of way, and just not that not that fulfilled from a nutritional perspective. Drinking a lot of coffee, I was running marathons at the time. I had a very, very hectic job in education, and looking back on it now, even just what I've learned from listening to podcasts, from following really educated women on these topics, it was just a recipe for disaster. And so it's almost like, looking back now, it's really not a surprise that I ended up feeling so metabolically drained after doing that for years on end. Let's talk about creatine again for a moment, because you obviously see probably just as much online about it as I do. Probably talk to other people about it. And I wasn't in the US for any of these events yet this year, but I do know that there's a strong presence for creatine at these trade shows at the moment as well. So from your perspective as an ingredient expert, or the gangster, why is the narrative around creatine shifting so dramatically? It's obviously been quite locked into athletic performance for the last, give or take, 30 years. We're really coming out of that now, which is fueled by science, which is amazing. What's your perspective on it? Why is that happening? What are you noticing? And maybe what do you think we're going to see next?
Yeah, I think the narrative around creatine is changing. Like what you said, the science is exploding and people are studying it in different ways and knowing to look for other endpoints. So when I was in grad school and I first heard about creatine, all I heard was that sports people took it because it sucks in the water into your muscles and makes you look more ripped. I mean, that was like the education I got on creatine in grad school. And so of course, as I'm seeing, starting to hear rumblings in the industry about, it can help with, cognitive health and things like that. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's very different than what I learned about it. But you dig into the science, and there really is a lot of science out there showing that it's so beneficial, and that it's, really almost a necessary part of our diet. I mean, I guess it does. I mean, I still have a lot to learn on creatine, but I guess it does naturally occur in some foods, but, I think it's more present in meats, if I'm remembering right. And, so like when you were a vegan, you're certainly not going to be getting a lot of creatine that way, so I think having it in ways that make it more accessible is good. I think we're going to continue to see it grow. I mean, a lot of the creatine monohydrate is manufactured in China. There is some in Europe and other places, but there's this whole stigma around China, which I don't know that I necessarily agree with. But because I think there's a lot of great products that come from China too. So I think we'll probably continue to see more of a diversification of it, and I'm curious to see if we'll see more of a diversification of formats, like in terms, because I mean, creatine monohydrate is the most popular one that's out there, but there's also creatine nitrate. I was learning from writing an article a couple of weeks ago. I was reading, and there's actually, other forms of creatine as opposed to just monohydrate. At Expo West, I found a company in the United States that manufactures creatine hydrochloride. So I think we'll probably see more chemical formats of it. But I think we'll probably continue to see the delivery formats grow too, like you were alluding to the gummies. And, in some gummies, it's, not all gummies are equal. There's been some that are tested that it's already degraded into creatinine, which is not helpful. So, so just being mindful of, how you're taking it, making sure it's actual creatine and not creatinine is important. Creatine will degrade into creatinine rapidly in water. And I think we'll continue to see progress made there to get it in the liquid formats, because people are putting everything into beverages these days. And not everyone wants to deal with a powder. Not everyone wants to eat gummies, and that's okay. That's why we have different formats to please lots of different people. But I would not be surprised if we see a huge push to get it more in beverages. And I'm hoping on the science side of things that we'll see more clinical trials dialing into what dose is best for what need state. So, the 5 grams kind of seems to be a minimum, from what I'm hearing, sometimes you can get away with lower doses, but 5 grams is kind of like the entry into the market, like your starting threshold, when you're taking it. So, but some people go up to 10 and 20, and maybe on the sports nutrition side, maybe that's wise for someone who's an average Joe like me, and just wants to take it to help with energy and brain fog. Maybe the 5 grams is enough. Maybe there's a better dose somewhere in there. So I'm hoping the science will help us figure out, help us dial in more on that. So if you want to take creatine for a certain function, that you can get exactly what you need. But it's kind of exciting to watch all this change. When you learn, you're in grad school, that like all it's good for is like helping to keep water and muscles. It's good for a lot more than that. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
I would love to touch on GLP-1, because I would say, together with women's health, brain health, this is like the third leg of the stool that is getting a lot of, I would just say not a lot of just attention, but like a lot of actual care and interest behind it, in terms of, people that are on GLP-1s, just the rate at which you are losing weight and the rate at which also your muscle mass is being impacted and affected, that it's very, very important to consume and eat things when you are hungry, or when you do need to eat, that are going to contribute towards your body mass index sort of remaining within a healthy range. And it's very, very interesting to kind of see those two trends come to a bit of a point together. We've got this like creatine freight train, GLP-1 freight train, and then they cross over in this really interesting way. So sounds like you've got both a professional and a personal story here, and I'd love for you to share as much or as little of that with me as you'd like to.
Sure. So I am on GLP-1 medication. I'm currently on Mounjaro. I was on Ozempic before, and we're switching things up a little bit because my weight loss kind of plateaued. Perimenopause probably doesn't help either, but I have successfully kept off like 40 pounds of weight since starting them. I got barely hit the criteria for type 2 diabetes. So my doctor was very excited, because now insurance will cover everything. So that's how I ended up in taking GLP-1s. But it's so interesting to watch everything that's going on, and also be like a food scientist in this space too. It's just kind of a interesting nexus that I'm in. And, there is a lot of drama and skepticism over GLP-1s, and like losing, like if you lose weight too fast, you're definitely going to lose more muscle than you should. But I also think that not everyone realizes that losing like about 25% of your muscle, or sorry, of the weight that you're losing, about 25% of that or less is going to be muscle, and that's okay. If you're going above 25, then that's probably not the best. And, doing like the body composition measurements, with my personal trainer, that is about where I'm at in terms of muscle loss. But like if I get, to a much lower weight, I am not going to need the amount of muscle that is in me right now. So we're not all, when we're losing weight, it's not 100% fat. It's going to be different for people depending on where they're at. For me, losing of the weight loss that I've lost, about 25% of that being muscle is right where I'm supposed to be and has been good. So, it is important to watch muscle mass, to make sure that you're not losing too much of it. And a lot of that, I think when you're losing too much muscle, it's coming from too rapid of a weight loss. And mine's been very gradual, so that helps. But of course, everybody wants things now. So of course they're going to do whatever they need to do to lose weight fast and be done with it. But the other thing that I think is really interesting, about creatine helping with muscle mass is also back to the women's health thing. So we just naturally lose muscle mass as we age. It's a fact of life. Sometimes it will get so extreme that you get sarcopenia and you're losing too much of it, but our muscle mass is just going to slowly go down as we age. And creatine can help, not necessarily reverse it, I suppose, but, slow it down, and help us, retain that muscle as we age, and having a good muscle mass, and it keeps us moving. That's going to help with like our healthy aging and our longevity. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for creatine in both those spaces. And I just happen to be in both those phases of my life right now. But I think like anything like creatine or, there's other compounds out there too that can help with muscle strength, recovery and building and things like that. But I think it's so important to have that to go along with, whatever you're taking, being on GLP-1s, because we're eating less. So we want to make sure that the nutrition we're taking in matters more. And if, anything that can help, with retaining some more of that protein and utilizing what you're eating, I think is good. And, creatine is going to help you keep that protein to build your muscles and, take care of everything. And it's just also critical as to how it feeds into being healthy and living a long life.
It's another one of those science unfolding in real time, in front of our eyes. And it's interesting to see culturally. I know last year, I think Serena Williams or one of the Williams sisters partnered, and it's a very bold thing to see happen, and it's interesting because something kind of doesn't exist and then it does, and we all go through our own journeys in terms of coming to understand, what is my opinion on that. Best thing you can do for your health is focus on your own unique health and the needs that you have, right?
Absolutely. We could all do well with just being kind to each other and not judging each other, because you never know what someone else has gone through. And you may see someone that looks beautiful and is at a healthy weight, and maybe they battled eating disorders their entire life. You don't know. So just be kind. Everyone's on their own journey.
To wrap up for today, the first time I saw you was in that video doing push-ups at the Expo Fit Challenge. And I want to know, what is it that makes you want to wake up at like 6 a.m. during an event that's already very busy and overstimulating and draining your social battery? What makes the idea of going to like a group workout early in the morning appealing to you, and what did you get out of it?
2 words: Dave Slagle. So the only reason I went was because I wanted to support him. I mean, that's why I signed up for it. But then Cassie, my boss's boss and friend who I referenced earlier, she's also very big into working out, and she was going anyway. And another freelance writer that works with us went. So it was kind of like a nice mini team building, and that was my first week on the job at Informa, actually. So that was fun. But then I also found out about a lot of other people that were going to be there, and it's like, yeah, let's just go do this and have fun. I know it's like low pressure, everyone's kind of on their own journey, and it was great. I mean, I was definitely the most out of shape person there, and I went first so that I could just get it out of the way. Like someone's got to set the bar low so everyone else can go and kick ass, and that's exactly what happened. But it was fun. I no regrets, and would totally do it again. And and it really was just wanting to support a friend, but also wanting to try to take a little bit of space to take care of myself too. And yeah, I was tired. And do I ever get up that early for anything else in my normal life? No, I do not. But it's there's also a little bit of FOMO there too, like you want to go because you don't want to miss out. And it's, at these events, a lot of people are, especially in Vegas, everyone's like socializing at the bar, and that's not my jam. So to do something different was a lot of fun.
Devon, where can people find you if they're listening and they're like, I have to follow this lady and catch some of this content? Where can people catch up with you?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. So if you look for Devon Gholam, Gholam, although I'm sure you'll spell my name correctly on everything that you're doing with this, you can follow me on LinkedIn. And I am, of course, writing very regularly for my day job, and that's supplysidesj.com. Would definitely encourage people to go sign up for the newsletter there, because it's not just me that's writing things. We've got my teammate, Hank Schultz, our content director, my boss, Christine Kapperman, and lots of wonderful freelancers and contributors. And there's just a lot of good info there. So definitely go there too.
Fantastic. And for anybody listening, do you have any final words to kind of summarize any of the topics that we spoke about today before I let you go?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think with everything that we talked about, it's everyone's going through something in life, whether they're going through perimenopause, whether they're having kids, whether they're trying to lose weight, whether they're trying out creatine for the first time. Everyone's on their own journey. So let's just all be kind and be respectful, and and just go out there and do the best we can. And especially if people in the industry are listening, like, do whatever you got to do to make good products that are backed by science, and just do right by people, because we're helping people to live better. So, let's do the right thing, and we can all grow together.
Devon, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm sure that we'll speak again soon.